Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. No offense to anyone, I hope you do the right thing. But in this video, I'll definitively prove that I'm the Son of God and that all other paths are wrong. Okay, so let's start with the picture on the screen, the first picture on the screen. I'm going to need to use several pictures to prove my point here. If you look at all these people who founded these massive churches, right? These church groups are very large church groups. They all look like crypto Jews. Now, if they're not crypto Jews, what are they? Okay. It's very confusing in regards to that, right? There's something like that. There's various theories, right? People talk about how Jews converted in Germany, Khazaria, what have you. Now, if that's the case, they have a common ancestor, right? The Ashkenazi Jews and the people from Khazaria, from Germany, what have you, they have a common ancestor, right? Some of them converted, some of them didn't. You know, logic would tell you that, right? So maybe those people are actually related to the common ancestors of the Jews. However, we know that their behavior is nearly identical. Why? Because of witchcraft. Because of the idea in mythology called the genius. The genius. Now, what is the genius? The genius is a deity that's often depicted as a serpent because it comes from the serpent source. The serpent, which is adverse to the sun. Thus, my next picture's here. Right, the genius of Palermo, what have you, where you see that it says that the serpent was at odds with the sun. Now, I do not worship the sun. Again, I do not worship the sun. But the sun is a symbol of God and the bridegroom. We see that in Psalm 19, where it says the sun is the symbol of God's son, who's the champion, right? The top martial arts. We know it's the top martial arts because in Psalm 18, it said God trains his hands for battle. In Judges 3, it says God left the other peoples around the Israelites to teach them warfare. Malachi, the son of righteousness. Ecclesiastes talks about the son of revelation, right? The root and offspring of David and the bright morning star. If you interpret that as Lucifer's star, Venus's star, then you fail. Which brings me to my next question. Why are these people in this Greek culture depicted in a way that's similar to the look of the founders of the churches? Right, these people can't have founded everything. They can't have founded Greek mythology, Roman mythology, okay, the Abrahamic faiths, Chinese religions, African religions. You know, they can't be responsible for everything. That's ridiculous. That couldn't be the case. So why are they depicted in that picture as Luciferians, specifically? Venus' counterpart is Lucifer. Venus, in a certain Bacchanalia rite, a Dionysian rite in Greco-Roman mythology, is his consort, has something to do with him, is in the atmosphere, the ambiance, is in the same genius as Dionysus. Thus, Dionysus and Venus, like all the Greco-Roman deities, are demons, right? They're serpent, spirit-derived beings, which makes them demons. Like Set, who is depicted as a snake, making him the child of the devil, like in John 8, it talks about how that they're not really chosen by God. Now let's look at this comparison here. Let's compare the church founding fathers. I had to make it smaller to fit the other pictures, to the invisible empire, the clan, right? Now, if these people were Jews, or people who look like Jews, and the clan was made up of Protestant churches, look it up, Protestant churches, and they supposedly believed in Nordicism, then why on earth are they part of churches that were founded in America by people they thought were white, but were really either Jews or people who have a common ancestor with people who claim to be white Jews, what have you? Why is that? Obviously, their same clan spirit is the spirit of the churches, which is a serpent spirit, right? Going back to the genius. And it's from their history. Their serpent, Roman, Greek, what have you, spirit. Barbarian, Roman, kind of mixed together with a serpent direction. Thus, the rape of Europa by Zeus, who changes forms, which means one of his forms is a serpent, right? Going back to the genius, which represents his center spirit, his protective spirit, the spirit of a land, a statue, a vineyard, an army, the spirit of the Roman emperor, protecting the land, so to speak, right? Which also makes the eagle in the Roman context a symbol of the serpent spirit as well, even though the eagle eats the serpent. But people who are evil they attack themselves, they destroy themselves. So the eagle is a symbol of people destroying themselves because they have embraced the serpent spirit. And the eagle and the serpent don't get along in nature, right? Eagles eat serpents. So the genius, so to speak, is a self-destructive, sadistic idea in Greco-Roman mythology. Pretty straightforward. So you have these Protestant churches who were founded by crypto-Jews or people that resemble the idea of crypto-Jews, right? You know, and then you have these Klansmen who claim that they don't like Jews, who are in the same spirit that they're in. Pretty straightforward. And you connect it to that, the genius in mythology. And Zeus, who's, you know, in his form Jupiter, is depicted on Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. So that overkills. The Catholics and Protestants are really Luciferians. But so are all the Abrahamic faiths. Because it says in Isaiah 57 that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. So the wicked are killing the righteous and they're seizing control over religion. Okay, in the flesh. And in Jeremiah 8, it says the lying pen of the scribe handled it falsely. So it says the righteous are being taken away and that the scribes are lying about God. And then it also says in the Bible that narrow is the way to life and broad is the way to destruction. So the righteous are taken away, they're being killed, the scribes are lying, and narrow is the way to life and time is running out. That's what it's saying. There's no other way it could be. No other way. Absolutely no other way it could be. So the people who are trying to pretend that's not the case, maybe they form their own Christian group, maybe they're from this church or that church, maybe they're a pagan, okay, they're all in the spirit of Lucifer being led astray by that serpent source. There's no other way it could be. So as you look at the evidence and you consider what God expects you to do with the evidence, how God expects you to respond to the evidence, right? Luke 12:57, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? How God expects you to respond, like he expected King Solomon to judge between the two women. Judge between the two spirits, the spirit of truth and universal pinpoint and moral precision, but versus the spirit of mere human rules, customs, and traditions, and peer pressure, and merging with the government to persecute me because they worship Lucifer. Thank you.